Go ahead.
What's your opinion of the 4-day no-bail hold? Is that appropriate?
You know, it's difficult for me to say. I can tell you that where I do the bulk of my practice in Florida, anytime anybody is charged with armed robbery, there is no bail as a matter of right, and you have to have a hearing like this. So I'm used to this sort of thing, and I didn't find anything unusual about it.
Was it fair?
Listen, we are going to be examining, you know, what deals, what promises, what went on behind the scenes. Right now I can't comment on it because, quite frankly, the only things I've heard about it are what I've heard in the media, and I need to verify it and see exactly what occurred.
Gail, if you had to timeline this for us, how do you anticipate this going on now from the next step to trial?
Okay, well, there are a couple things you need to know. One is the next hearing is sometime during the week of October 22nd. The judge's office will contact us. I am starting another case in Washington on October 1st that's going to tie me up for 2 or 3 months, and everybody's aware of that. So, you know, obviously I'll come back for this hearing, but I don't expect a trial or motions to suppress or any real challenge of evidence to be taking place until sometime next year. You know, we can't comment on that at this point. We're certainly, again, discussing it with Mr. Rogers, and we're going to try and work it out to the convenience of everyone.
Gail, if there is a grand jury,
Wait a second, I'm sorry. No.
If there is a grand jury, will O.J. testify before the grand jury?
No.
How's his family coping?
You said that you're going to plead not guilty. What are you basing that on?
That's what criminal defense lawyers do. We plead not guilty.
Yeah.
Okay. And to answer Brian's question, you know, as you saw, Arnell, Christie, O.J.'s sister Shirley, his brother-in-law Benny were all in the courtroom. They were all here to show support, and they were all extremely concerned and extremely relieved that the judge accepted our stipulation and granted O.J. bail.
Can you say why there was a change of judge?
Actually, Gabe can speak to that because I'm not real sure as to the process.
My understanding was that when the original, before O.J. was arrested, there was an arrest warrant signed through Department 9 of the Justice Court, and what ended up happening is that went through the system on a lower case number. That was the original case number. Later on, when they filed when the police came through with the police report after the arrest and filed the actual charges in the jail, that was generated another newer case number. So when everything sort of consolidated together, the rule in this courthouse and in courthouses generally is that the lower case number takes precedence. That's why Judge Zimmerman was assigned the higher case number. Judge Bonaventure was assigned the lower case number, and that's why it was consolidated into the lower case number and sent to Judge Bonaventure's courtroom.
Was there any opposition by the DA's office to have it moved from Zimmerman to Bonaventure?
No, not at all. There was. I can tell you that there was absolutely no, not even an inkling of any kind of issue with respect to whether it was Judge Zimmerman or Judge Bonaventure. They're both very qualified judges. I've known them a long time. I've practiced in front of them on a daily basis. I knew Joe Bonaventure. I know his father, Judge Bonaventure, who's a senior judge, and I actually practiced with Joe when he was a deputy DA, and I had cases against him. So there was no issue there. These are both qualified individuals, and we're happy to have Judge Bonaventure or Judge Zimmerman on this case.
In the end, this
played no part in this.
No, not at all.
In the end,
not
this
at all.
will not be handled by these judges. It will ultimately be handled by the trial judge. Are you satisfied with the possible track?
Well, what will happen is the procedure here is we're either going to have a preliminary hearing or we're going to have it go to the grand jury. Either way, if we're going to obviously challenge the evidence at the preliminary hearing, it may or may not be what's called bound over. If the judge decides that a case has been proven by slight or marginal evidence, which is the legal standard in Nevada for a preliminary hearing, if the judge decides that, then he will bind the case over to district court. I'm not sure right now. No one knows which district court judge it's going to go to. If it goes to grand jury, that will bypass the preliminary hearing process, and then the case will directly go to the district court judge. So eventually, Judge Bonaventure is not going to be trying this case. He's a justice court judge. There will be a district court judge trying this case.
But now Mr. Simpson could have for his trial judge, an African American, because that's the path Judge Gates, I
charge case.
Okay. All right. All right. Listen.
I know we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I know. First of all, you're getting way ahead of yourselves, and we are not going to make any comments or respond to any questions like that
Yale,
at all.
Tom Riccio claims he has immunity in this case. You know that for a fact, and your thoughts anyway.
I'm not going to comment on any of Mr. Riccio's claims at this point in time.
Does that make sense?
Listen, listen, here's my comment in relation to that. I mean, I love watching you guys at night. I really do. And I'm amazed. I am amazed at some of the stuff you come up with.
Thank you.
The problem is that we've got to deal with it in a courtroom and not in the media. One of the analysts the other night said, how come Galanter's not out here defending his client, fighting for his client? And I thought to myself, that's not what I do for a living. What I do for a living and what Gabe does for a living occurs inside that building. I mean, this is to notify you and answer your questions and, make sure the public's informed. But you don't fight for your client in front of a television camera. You fight for your client in front of a judge and a jury. And that's what we're going to do. I cannot go through it with you in terms of the media. Now, just to follow up, at some point in time, Gabe and I will be filing the appropriate motions and making the appropriate challenges. And when we do that in court, it'll be our pleasure to discuss it with the media. But I can't do it now.
Who are the people you want to interview first? Who are the associates?
We're not going to discuss that.
He's pregnant.
The judgment.
You believe Mr. Riccio set this up?
Simpson, if he does not want him to be in contact with anyone involved, so far as to say, via the internet, if I'm quoting correctly, carrier pigeon, is your camp concerned that these people, that these men, some of whom claim to be friends with Mr. Simpson for many years, will try to get in touch with him, some of whom may not have been identified yet?
It's a good question. I am always concerned that any client I represent follows a judge's order scrupulously, and not only the letter of the order, but the intent of the order. Now, what happens is I have other clients, Gabe has other clients, I have other places to be, so I can't be with any of my clients 24 hours a day. I can assure you that we will do everything in our power as officers of the court to ensure that Judge Bonaventure's order not only is lived up to the letter of the order, but the spirit of the order.
Do you believe Mr. Riccio set this whole thing up?
I'm not going to comment on what I think that is. Okay, all right. I am not going to announce the flight number and the time we're arriving. Although you guys will probably find out. I will tell you, and I have told all the appropriate authorities, my intention is to have him leave Las Vegas as soon as possible. Now, how that is facilitated depends on how quickly I get out of this news conference. We're gonna try and get him home today.
Has the solitary confinement been hard on him?
Pardon me?
The solitary confinement that he's been in, has that been hard on him?
Oh, that's hard on anybody. I don't know how many of you have ever been in one of these cells, but we do it for a living, and I know I'm going home that night. It is not nice. Anyway, anything else, and then we have to go.
The media attention on this case and the scrutiny of it and all the efforts to try to talk the principles of the case affect your ability to get a fair trial and keep this, in the courtroom, as you say.
Okay, there are a couple of issues. The first issue that you're asking about is fairness. As I told you, I am a true believer in the criminal justice system. I really am. I was trained, Gabe was trained, we were both trained in the same place. I mean, this is what we do for a living. We really are true believers. And I know it sounds corny, but I believe that if you identify the proper issues, you can get a fair jury. That's the first issue. The second issue is we understand who our client is. We know what public perception is. We know what you guys think. I mean, we don't live in holes, so we get it. Now, of course, the issue is how do you deal with it? That's a question that we'll deal with later down the road.
Maybe getting ahead of ourselves, but is there a chance that OJ would ever come to plea in this case, or are you prepared to go to trial?
Not as long as I'm
Do
representing.
you believe the district attorney overcharged this case?
I'm not going to comment on that. And again, I have had contact with Mr. Rogers over the past few days. And I'm not just saying this. I mean, I truly believe that he has been nothing but professional, courteous, ethical. I mean, I'm an out-of-towner. He's just been beyond gracious with me, and I appreciate that, and you all need to know it. I mean, you know, you assume things that aren't accurate, and I understand you guys don't know a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and obviously we couldn't discuss with you what was going on behind the scenes, but I got to tell you, they were beyond gracious to us.
And I can tell you that practicing here on a regular basis, on a daily basis, that with Mr. Roger, I've known him for a while also.
Mr. Roger.
And with, you know, I mean, we may have our run-ins in the future on this case, and there's no doubt that he'll do his job and we'll do our job, but that's just his personality. It's not because it's the OJ case that he's being nice to us. I've dealt with him on other cases. I deal with the staff on other cases, and that's just the way this office works.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, there is a time and place for doing battle in most cases. And again, you know, my goal is to have OJ treated like every other client in my firm and Gabe's firm. That's the goal. I'm telling you.
Most of you are confident that this will go to trial. There will not be a plea bargain in this case.
I'm confident that if there is no court resolution prior to trial, that it could ultimately go to trial. But your question's a complicated one because there are a lot of ways to get a case out before.
Do you anticipate any other lawyers being added to the team, your team?
I've already asked and answered that.
And you're sticking around despite the fact that you've got another big case coming up?
All right, and whatever, if he's out, I'm here.
So, anyway, anything else?
We do these robbery cases all the time.
Mr. Grosser, what was the thing about your license in Nevada? You guys should talk about your license in Nevada.
I've been licensed in Nevada for 7 years, ever since I came here from Florida.
I mean, I want to answer your question, but I can't. Okay, hold on. I'm going to answer some questions in the back, if that's okay. Ma'am.
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that you get fair representation of your trial.
Well, he's going to get fair representation.
I can assure you that as long as Gabe and I are representing you. Beautiful. Anything else? Do you have a question? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Joe Pesci. No more questions. No more questions. No more questions.
Greg Jarrett together with Edie Hill here in our studios. We have been watching